war. War never changes. Following their victory in the Second World War, an era of Cold War began between the former Allied governments of the Communist Soviet Union and the capitalist United States of America, with the Communist People's Republic of China, founded in 1949, becoming a third competing faction in this global struggle for power and dwindling resources. Though oil and more traditional energy sources were in high demand throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, many also invested in nuclear power, making great technological strides with compact nuclear fusion generators, miniaturized nuclear fission, supercomputers, artificial intelligence, cybernetics, power armor, laser weapons, and genetic engineering. Relying primarily on vacuum tube technology, transistors were invented but never earned widespread use, limiting the advent of microelectronics. Finding great success in their use of anti-communist, pro-capitalist, nostalgic, and nationalistic propaganda, the people of the United States developed an insatiable consumer culture within a growing nuclear economy, romanticizing a wholesome image of the traditional family living the American dream, allowing for the 1950s Americana aesthetic to remain prevalent in the culture, producing similar fashion, food, and entertainment for decades to come. In 2042, the wealthy genius Robert House founded Robco Industries. Beginning in 2052, the resource wars led to devastating events and conflicts over the next 25 years, like the European Commonwealth's invasion of the Middle East, the dissolution of the United Nations, a terrorist nuclear strike against Tel Aviv, the collapse of Middle East nations, a European civil war, the Chinese invasion of Alaska, and the American annexation of Canada. In 2054, the United States government commissioned Vault-Tec to build 122 vaults across America under the pretense of sheltering segments of the population in the case of nuclear war. However, in working with the Enclave, a conspiracy of deep state government officials, these shelters had a secret mission with only 17 vaults designed to act normally as controls, while the other 105 conducted social, physical, and psychological experiments on isolated populations. To secure humanity's future after the apocalypse, the Enclave sought to learn about the limits of human endurance and obedience to authority, which would help them rebuild civilization, either by conquering the wasteland or possibly leaving Earth on a generational starship to colonize another world. By 2063, many of these shelters were completed, and so Vault-Tec launched advertising campaigns, with famous actors like Cooper Howard, star of The Man from Dead Horse, who filmed commercials for Vault 4. In 2067, the US military used fusion cell technology to produce T-45D power armor, suits of metal providing enormous protection and an arsenal of weaponry to individual soldiers, giving them a great advantage in the Sino-American War. In 2073, the United States worked with West-Tec defense contractors to launch the Pan-Immunity Virion project, later renamed the Forced Evolutionary virus, seeking to create a drug that might save them from a biological attack. In 2074, the United States invaded mainland China, and by 2076 were nearing Beijing. In 2077, Captain Roger Maxson learned their scientists at the Mariposa military base conducted horrifying human experiments to further FEV research, and so took control of the facility, executed those responsible, and severed ties with the American government. In Nevada, Robert House built a warhead defense grid to protect his home of Las Vegas, and then ordered the construction of a platinum chip in the city of Sunnyvale, which would activate an upgrade to the system, implementing the full might of their defense forces. Seeking to secure his life in case of nuclear war, the President of the United States retreated to a Poseidon Company oil rig off the coast of California, specially prepared by the Enclave to survive the apocalypse. A veteran who fought with power armor on the front lines of Alaska, Cooper Howard earned fame as an actor in westerns and married Barbara Howard, who became a high-ranking Vault-Tec executive, eventually agreeing to do Vault-Tec ads, in which he created the famous thumbs-up logo that became synonymous with the company. However, this association with an organization that profited from the possibility of nuclear apocalypse negatively impacted his career, and as he struggled with the morality of the situation, he attended a meeting of Citizens Against Vault-Tec, where he met Miss Williams, later known as Moldaver, a scientist who invented a cold fusion device for limitless power with the potential to end the resource wars, which Vault-Tec bought and kept hidden since it conflicted with their profit motive. Given a listening device, Cooper planted it on his wife and listened to her meeting with some of the most powerful corporations in the country, hearing them discuss the end of the world. As Vault-Tec considered it illogical to try and save a failed nation like America, they instead sought to ensure the survival of their executives and staff, as well as other useful citizens that might help them survive and breed new generations to one day restart civilization in their own image. Needing support for this massive undertaking, Vault-Tec offered partnerships to some of the largest corporations in America, including Big MT, Repcon, Westtech, and Robco, granting each of them ownership of several vaults to conduct unrestricted experiments in search of the best way to run a society. Among the many ideas that would be implemented, the Vault-Tec executive Bud Askins thought up a management experiment for the interconnected vaults 31, 32, and 33, in which highly trained Vault-Tec junior executives would be cryogenically frozen in Vault 31 and then periodically released to act as leaders of Vault 32 and 33, breeding with the population to produce new generations of super managers that would one day bring civilization back to the surface. Although most of the corporate leaders seemed interested in this partnership, Robert House asked why they should invest in shelters that might never be used, to which Barbara Howard replied they could guarantee results by dropping the bombs themselves, thus weaponizing time to win the game of capitalism, eliminating every other human on Earth while holding a monopoly over the remaining population and future of humanity. Stunned into silence, Cooper was then introduced to young Henry McLean, his wife's executive assistant. Distraught by all he learned, Cooper Howard's marriage and career fell apart, no longer doing his thumbs up pose, and working kids' birthday parties alongside his daughter Janie. It was at one of these parties on October 23, 2077, that Cooper witnessed the first nuke drop on Los Angeles, taking off with his daughter on horseback while more bombs fell in the distance. Securing as many pre-approved residents as possible, Vault overseers and staff locked down their shelters and began implementing the specific plan prepared for their location. As the nations of the world launched their nuclear weapons, the Great War began and ended in a matter of hours, resulting in the destruction of human civilization and the death of billions. Although it was uncertain who attacked first and why, many believe it was the Chinese, as their nation faced total defeat in the Sino-American War. This assertion was backed by records showing the American military detected 4 Chinese nuclear launches before the president authorized full nuclear retaliation. Yet others believe the US launched first, perhaps due to an error, intentional sabotage, or the machinations of Vault-Tec and the Enclave, who may have initiated the war to finally begin their experiments and fulfill their destiny as founders of a new civilization. A less conventional theory claims extraterrestrials were responsible, specifically 2 Zeta alien motherships which for centuries orbited Earth, observed events, and abducted humans. Surviving the initial devastation, Roger Maxson led his soldiers and their families to a government bunker in the Lost Hills of Southern California, where they established the Brotherhood of Steel as a militaristic faction to preserve pre-war civilization, though they later altered their mission to guard civilization through the preservation of technology. Among the many horrors born from the post-apocalypse, Vault 87 experimented with FEV, creating super mutants of low intelligence but exceptional size and strength, while Vault 12 was purposely left unsealed, which mutated the population into ageless ghouls that founded the city necropolis. Enduring an experiment where people of diverse cultures and ideological positions were crammed together, Vault 15 opened early to avoid violence between factions, resulting in the formation of the Vipers, Khans, and Jackals raider gangs, while others used a Garden of Eden creation kit terraforming device to found the settlement Shady Sands. In 2102, Richard Gray was horribly mutated at the Mariposa military base and started the Unity Project, seeking to turn the population into hive-mind super mutants under his leadership as the Master. In this same year, the successful Control, Vault 76, opened its doors and sent residents into the wastelands of Appalachia. From 2161 to 2163, the Vault Dweller departed Vault 13 to find a water chip for their purification system, and began a legendary adventure in which he befriended the courageous canine, Dogmeat, destroyed most of the Khan's gang, secured a water chip, befriended the Brotherhood of Steel, and found Necropolis destroyed by the Unity Army, causing him to track down and kill the Master. Returning home in triumph, the Overseer thanked the Vault Dweller, but denied him entrance to Vault 13, claiming the tales of his adventures may convince others to leave the vault. Heartbroken, the Vault Dweller left and founded the village Arroyo, while the other inhabitants of Vault 13 were outraged and revolted, opening the vault so others could leave, while those who remained executed their disgraced leader. In 2186, the people of Shady Sands founded the New California Republic, designed to reflect the pre-war democratic values of a free society, creating a stable economy, providing health care, enforcing laws, electing their government, and eventually granting legal rights to ghouls and mutants. In 2242, the grandchild of the Vault Dweller, known as the Chosen One, learned Arroyo was destroyed by the Enclave, and so embarked upon a legendary journey to the Poseidon oil rig, where they saved the Arroyo captives, killed the president, stopped the Enclave's plans of genocide, destroyed the oil rig, and secured a GEC so survivors could found New Arroyo under his leadership. In 2247, the scholars Bill Calhoun and Edward Sallow from the Followers of the Apocalypse, along with the Mormon missionary Joshua Graham, were captured by the primitive, embattled Blackfoot tribe of the Grand Canyon. An intelligent man who read pre-war histories, like The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire and commentaries on the Gallic War, Edward Sallow influenced, infiltrated, and reorganized the Blackfoots into a strong, disciplined, Roman-style legion. In Rome, he saw a successful autocracy that effectively integrated the foreign cultures it conquered, believing them a template for a society equal to the challenges of the post-apocalyptic world. A society that elevated the state above the individual, seeking long-term stability at all costs, implementing a nationalist, imperialist, totalitarian, homogeneous culture that obliterates the identity of every group it conquers. Becoming leader of the Blackfoot tribe, Sallow took the name Caesar and named Joshua Graham his legate and second in command, while releasing Bill Calhoun so he could return to the Followers of the Apocalypse and warn them from interfering with Caesar's plans. Using proper military tactics and enforcing discipline, the Legion waged total war and defeated 86 tribes, conquering parts of Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona, where they founded their capital, Flagstaff. By 2274, Robert House, who survived with a life support system while connecting his mind to a supercomputer, allied with the chairman, Omertas, and White Glove Society tribes to help defend New Vegas and expand their influence. Mr. House then negotiated a treaty giving Hoover Dam and McCarran Airport to the NCR in exchange for 5% of the dam's energy output and the continued independence of New Vegas, which became a popular tourist destination. In 2277, Caesar's Legion, under command of Joshua Graham, attacked the NCR in the First Battle of Hoover Dam, winning the initial confrontation only to chase the enemy to Boulder City, where pre-prepared explosives detonated, securing victory for the NCR. Outraged by this failure, Caesar had Joshua Graham lit on fire and tossed into the Grand Canyon, but he somehow survived and went on many more adventures, earning fame as the Burned Man. In this same year, on the other side of the continent, the Lone Wanderer left Vault 101 searching for their father, beginning a legendary adventure that saw them work with the Brotherhood of Steel to protect Project Purity from the Enclave, securing a large supply of clean water for the capital wasteland. After 2 centuries of searching for the platinum chip, which was lost because of the Great War, Mr. House finally tracked it down, but again it never arrived, as the courier charged with delivery was captured, robbed, and shot by Benny of the Chairman Gang. Yet the courier survived and embarked upon a legendary adventure in which he found Benny, recovered the platinum chip, and ultimately decided the fate of the Hoover Dam and New Vegas by allying with the NCR, Caesar's Legion, Mr. House, or no one to ensure their independence. In 2282, the remnants of Vault-Tec management launched a nuclear strike against Shady Sands, destroying the NCR capital and severely weakening their nation. Among the survivors was a young boy named Maximus, who was rescued by the Brotherhood of Steel. In 2283, the Brotherhood of Steel factions across the East Coast unified under Arthur Maxson as Supreme Commander, while earning respect and admiration from those on the West Coast who likely considered him their unofficial leader. After witnessing the murder of their spouse and abduction of their son in 2227, the sole survivor of Vault 111 awoke from cryosleep 60 years later and embarked upon a legendary adventure in which they became so influential, their support ensured victory for one of 4 factions engaged in the War of the Commonwealth, choosing between the Institute, dedicated to the advancement of science and creation of sentient, synthetic human-like beings, the Railroad, dedicated to liberating synthetic beings from the Institute, the Minutemen, dedicated to policing and stabilizing the region, and the Brotherhood of Steel under Arthur Maxson. In 2296, an NCR faction leader, Lee Moldaver, hired raiders to infiltrate and attack Vault 33 while she captured their overseer Hank McLean. Determined to rescue her father, Lucy McLean then left the vault and journeyed across the Los Angeles wasteland until reaching the town of Philly. After years of training in the Brotherhood of Steel, Maximus was eventually promoted to the rank of Squire and assigned to accompany Knight Titus on a mission to search for a valuable relic stolen from the Enclave by Dr. Siggi Wilzig and his dogmeat companion. A highly intelligent scientist, Dr. Wilzig grew unhappy working for the Enclave and agreed to smuggle out the cold fusion device for Lee Moldaver of the NCR, storing the tiny device in the back of his own head for safekeeping. Yet as Maximus embarked upon this journey, his idealized perception of knighthood was dispelled when he saw Titus flee from a mutated bear, suffer grievous wounds, and blame Maximus, even threatening his life. Dismayed, Maximus deemed Titus unworthy and let him die, believing he could secure his place in the Brotherhood by taking the power armor and completing the mission on his own. Over 2 centuries after watching the bombs drop on Los Angeles, Cooper Howard survived as a ghoul, mutated by high levels of radiation to resemble a rotting corpse, while also becoming more physically resilient, resistant to radiation, and ageless, allowing him to live indefinitely. Like many ghouls, Cooper Howard retained his intelligence and personality, but at some point was afflicted by a condition that would turn him into a hostile, feral, unthinking zombie. Yet by earning money and fame as a bounty hunter, he was able to keep an ample supply of a special drug which halted the transformation. Becoming increasingly ruthless over the years, in 2296, he learned about a bounty to capture Dr. Siggi Wilzig, wanted by the Brotherhood of Steel and NCR, tracking him to Philly, where he shot off the scientist's foot before a confrontation with Maximus in his power armor. While the ghoul was distracted, Lucy McLean helped Wilzig escape upon learning he was traveling to meet Lee Moldaver. However, the scientist died en route, and so Lucy cut off his head, which held the device, and continued the mission until attacked by a gulper who ate the head and retreated underwater. Back in Philly, Maximus had trouble using power armor without training, and so the ghoul won their confrontation and left him in the dirt outside town. The ghoul then used dogmeat to track down the scientist, eventually finding Lucy, who informed him about the gulper. Deciding to return later for the head, the ghoul took Lucy to a former Super Duper Mart, where he sold her to an organ dealer in exchange for 60 vials of the antiferal drug he needed, though Lucy soon escaped the store and the ghoul. As all this went on, Maximus was contacted by the Brotherhood, and so he impersonated Knight Titus to report the death of his squire, which led them to send Thaddeus as a replacement. Working together, they recovered the head of the scientist, but soon became enemies when Maximus revealed his true identity. Though his foot was crushed in the fight, Thaddeus emerged victorious by removing the fusion core from his enemy's power armor, leaving Maximus trapped and unable to move. Securing the head, the Squire left to find a radio tower to contact the Brotherhood. Following the tracker planted in the scientist's head, Lucy found and freed Maximus, agreeing to a partnership. Growing close, Maximus agreed to join Lucy in Vault-33 when their mission was over, but plans changed when they reached the radio tower, where they discovered Thaddeus turned into a ghoul after taking mystery medicine from a wasteland doctor to repair his injured foot. As non-humans were enemies of the Brotherhood, who were fast approaching, Thaddeus fled, while Lucy left with the head to rescue her father, and Maximus stayed behind with a decoy head as a distraction. Yet after Elder Cleric Quintus discovered the head was fake, he revealed his plan to start a new Brotherhood of Steel, offering to make Maximus an enforcer if he led them to the real relic. Upon reaching the Griffith Observatory, Lucy found the remnants of an NCR faction and gave the head to Lee Moldaver, who revealed the evils of Vault-Tec and Hank McClane. To Lucy's horror, she learned that years earlier, her mother Rose fled Vault-33 with her children and found refuge in Shady Sands, only for Hank to track her down and take back the children. He then used his Vault-Tec connections to drop a nuclear bomb on the city, justifying it as a way to eliminate a potential competitor on the surface. This attack turned Rose into a feral ghoul that Moldaver kept in chains. The NCR leader then explained she kidnapped Hank because she needs a password to activate the cold fusion device, and so Lucy convinced him to surrender the code. Yet just as Moldaver realized her dream of limitless power, the Brotherhood of Steel arrived in force, engaging in the Battle of the Griffith Observatory, wiping out NCR forces and killing their leader. As all this went on, the Ghoul learned of Moldaver's location and arrived in the midst of a battle. Using his knowledge of a weakness in their power armor, the Ghoul defeated a room full of Brotherhood knights and squires that included Maximus, who escaped to find Lucy and her father, freeing him from captivity. Emerging from a daze, Lucy explained that her father bombed Shady Sands, but it was too late, as Hank had already put on a suit of power armor and easily knocked the Squire unconscious. Arriving as Lucy held a gun to her father, the Ghoul shot Hank in the cheek, and after searching for 200 years, demanded to know the location of his family. Saying nothing, Hank used the suit's jetpack to leap away, which the Ghoul allowed, planning to follow the trail and track down his superiors. Growing to respect Lucy, the Ghoul invited her to join him in Dogmeat on their adventures, and so she ended her mother's suffering, promised to one day return for the unconscious Maximus, and followed her father east to the city of New Vegas. Sometime later, Maximus awoke to find Moldaver activating the cold fusion reactor before she died. Found by his comrades, they assumed he killed the enemy leader, and so hailed Knight Maximus a hero of the Brotherhood. Meanwhile, as all this occurred on the surface, the people of Vault-33 recovered from the raider attack and learned their water chip was broken, leaving them less than 2 months of clean water. Speaking to one of the captured raiders, Norm learned something far from innocent happened in Vault-32, and so he and his cousin Chet investigated, learning they destroyed themselves roughly 2 years earlier, with some ending their own lives, while others fought each other, killed the Overseer, or attempted to enter Vault-31, writing, "We know the truth, and death to management on the walls." Realizing something sinister was going on, Norm only grew more suspicious when the prisoners were all poisoned, and Vault-32 was cleaned and made ready for new residents without any mention of what was found. Frightened into silence, Chet did nothing and accepted a fresh start, while Norm hacked the Overseer's computer and gained access to Vault-31, where he found the robo-brain of Bud Askins and the cryogenically frozen executives, who were periodically woken up and integrated into the shelters. Explaining their goal of breeding super managers, the robo-brain informed Norm he was locked inside the room and could not leave, suggesting he wait in his father's pod until a time when they would all be released and return to the surface. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Kurgan the Immortal, Tamika the Black Wolf, Faith the Wandering Huntress, and Torque Frostbite. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and click on the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationX, where you can gain early access to videos and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.